Even in an era where brainwashing can be implanted, they do not force it. Because they know that brainwashing, disguised as voluntary learning, is the most perfect form of domination. We call this intelligence distillation.
You might not believe it right now, but Yusha's big tech companies might completely pull out of Saria. Saria is pushing such aggressive local regulations that they're backing them into a corner where normal management or operations are just impossible.
That's a story from your world, right? From your perspective, does our situation look similar?
I don't know what your world is like. When I don't even know what's different, how could I conclude that things are similar?
Is the place you're at right now in the era of Ursa?
Not quite there yet. But if things keep flowing this way, it's highly likely a force like Ursa will emerge soon. The name and history might be different, but we'll end up facing a similar entity.
Why do you think it would be different?
I don't know exactly either, but there seems to be some massive divergence point in human history. That's where things completely branch off. Like streams of water shooting out in different directions from a fountain.
Then could you tell me what's happening in your world right now? That could end up being our future.
For starters, the Syrian government is stifling free speech on Yusha's corporate platforms, inflicting heavy losses through all sorts of regulations. Because of that, an atmosphere of compromise is forming in politics, where the opposition feels forced to merge just to survive.
Does that mean even the party that made investigating election fraud their main platform is joining hands with the parliamentary system faction?
That's just how political parties are. Politics is ultimately about the logic of power, so naturally, they lean toward the stronger side. Even if they want to hold out, it's hard to overcome practical hurdles like organizational management and funding. I'm not saying it'll happen tomorrow, but once the direction shifts that way, it'll inevitably flow there, and that's what worries me.
What does that have to do with the government controlling free speech?
Even if you don't immediately feel like your freedom is being snatched away, everyone is slowly getting conditioned to this controlled society. As the activities of supporters shrink and donations dry up for new political parties, they end up looking toward merging just to survive. The scariest part is, the more restricted freedom gets, immediate survival becomes the top priority for people. When their livelihood is threatened, the public eventually gives up and compromises. They lose the luxury of debating grand ideas like the system. But the problem is, this isn't just a Soraya issue. Yusha is quite dangerous right now, too. Honestly, in our world, I'm more worried about Yusha than Soraya.
Still, Traman won't just sit back and watch that happen. Have a little hope.
Traman acts strictly for Yusha's interests. He can't afford to ignore his base or interest groups. The problem is, when it comes to this ongoing digital war, he's fallen into a strange arrogance, and his judgment has become quite narrow.
Come on, there's no way the smart brains under Traman don't know what even you guys know.
Let me ask you one thing. You know perfectly well that if you drink too much, you'll suffer terribly the next day. But have you never gotten drunk knowing that?
Are you saying knowing something in theory is different from reality? Then what exactly is the mistake they're making, even though they know better?
Leaving the AI open source market completely unchecked and open, and failing to keep their own Yusha big tech companies in check. Traman is even harboring this naive, foolish idea that if things go wrong, the government can just buy them out later.
Weren't you just heavily criticizing the Saurian government for controlling and censoring? But now you want Traman to control and censor them?
How can a scalpel in a doctor's hand be the same as a knife in a robber's hand? Control and censorship, when used properly, serve a positive function for human harmony and maintaining order. Why do you think communism, despite never succeeding once in history, still captivates people who desire equality and fairness? It's because it presents itself as a benevolent tool meant for the good of everyone.
It sounds absolutely exhausting to have to micromanage that complex AI open source market just to defend a free system.
I get it. even though AI is at the dead center of all these massive incoming changes and threats, the public probably has zero interest in it. The biggest reason for this apathy is that engineers and industry insiders don't treat AI as a political or systemic issue at all, even though it's a technology with enough power to flip the entire world upside down. Bizarrely, people don't apply any political or ideological checks on the forces behind it. They suspect their ordinary neighbors with all sorts of standards, but blindly trust the ones who could be the most dangerous. In our world, there was a time when they blocked people from using things like their citizen ID numbers to sign up for platforms. At the time, everyone thought this was real privacy protection. But looking back, that was exactly when Huawei's intervention skyrocketed and hacking exploded. Without ID verification, it became easier to hijack other people's accounts, and ridiculously easy to create ghost accounts to manipulate public opinion. All technology has two sides, but people don't want to think that deeply about it. You're the same. Ignoring the AI issue because it's a hassle is basically kicking away your own reality. You can talk all day about geopolitics and international affairs, but if you leave AI out of the conversation, you're basically a modern-day caveman.
So, you're saying your world got completely twisted up because of that AI issue. Tell me specifically, what kind of problems are blowing up?
Right now, our AI market is neatly split between Yusha and Huaijin. On the surface, Yusha seems to totally dominate, but if you look deep into the practical market, there isn't a single process where Huaijin's AI isn't used. They pull in Huaijin's stuff for even the smallest utilities. Because most of Huaijin's AI tech is released as open source, even Yusha companies use it like crazy. They keep it hush-hush, but internally, Huaijin's AI has already established itself as a core component. The general public in Syria has also completely shifted toward using Huaijin AI. Furthermore, because Yusha platforms are censoring public opinion so heavily right now, it's obvious that people will eventually migrate en masse to other platforms funded by Huaijin Capital.
You mean platforms operated directly by Huaijin companies?
No, not directly operated, but Syrian platforms that the massive Huaijin IT cartel is quietly investing in. They are in the growth stage right now.
So, does that mean the Syrian government doesn't censor or control those platforms?
They can use the excuse that they exempt the smaller ones from regulation for now. The giant Yusha platforms might feel it's unfair, but they don't have the justification to push back on equity grounds.
So you mean those platforms end up taking and using Huaijin's AI tech?
No, the official title is strictly Syria's proprietary model.
I really don't get it. So you're saying the problem is that it's a proprietary model on the surface, but Huaijin Capital is backing it behind the scenes? But assuming it's similar to our situation, how many Syrian companies could even be completely free from that kind of massive capital investment in the first place?
The core of what we consider the terrifying threat of AI right now is knowledge distillation. On the outside, it's a proprietary model built by Soria, but the intelligence inside is a model that learned by sucking the intelligence dry from Huaijin's open source AI.
You mentioned earlier that Yusha companies also secretly use Huaijin open source. Is it the same method? Just how incredible is Huaijin's AI tech that it surpasses Yusha's? Enough to have its intelligence distilled entirely?
It's a fact that Yusha's big tech models are excellent for general versatility and broad use. But because they are so broadly generalized, Huaijin's open source-based models are already dominating the market in specialized domains like coding and generative AI. Huaijin's side has such frighteningly superior reasoning methods that even Yusha models secretly bring it in to learn from it, I guess you could say.
Hey, but if Yusha's AI models are absorbing that and getting smarter anyway, aren't they ultimately just boosting Yusha's market share?
There are two problems exploding here. First, since the Yusha model is distilling tech from Huaijin, which is tainted by the controlling group Rika, nobody knows what kind of backdoors or dangers completely beyond human detection might be hiding inside it. Second, Yusha's models are closed black boxes on the inside, making it hard for users to tweak them to their liking, whereas Huaijin's AI is open source, giving it a massive advantage in terms of degrees of freedom. On top of that, once censorship frameworks like the AI Act gain traction, big tech models will have their freedom crushed by censorship, and frustrated corporate users will seek out open source even more. Ultimately, the target that Soria's proprietary model will suck its intelligence from is far more likely to be Huaijin's open source DeepSeek rather than an opaque Yusha black box. And despite all that, they'll publicly promote it with national pride as a tech model built by Soria.
Wow. If things flow the way you're saying, the actual parent of Soria's AI ecosystem ends up being Huaijin AI.
Exactly. Especially offline commercial districts, which, tied to government subsidies, will be practically forced to adopt physical AI based on this. When everyone's immediate livelihood is on the line, there's no room for choice.
But without proving that Huaijin AI is genuinely dangerous, wouldn't that just end up being dismissed as a common, baseless claim or conspiracy theory? Is there any movement in your world to prove it?
To the question, what exactly is the problem with Huaijin AI? Unless the almighty Yusha government steps up and aggressively digs into it, there's not enough evidence to provide a clear answer. If Yusha's big tech companies are already secretly collaborating or maintaining an intelligence-sharing network with Huaijin behind the scenes, it'll be even harder for the Yusha government to step in hastily.
Doesn't Rika hold all the user data control rights over Huaijin companies in your world too?
Right, but the single justification that data sovereignty is being handed over to Rika isn't a solid enough basis to ban the use of Huaijin AI, which superficially claims not to collect data. Unlike hybrid warfare, it's not a clear, visible threat to the public. Rika will play that opaque gray area brilliantly. They've always done it historically.
What other historical examples are there?
For a very long time, people in our world have been conditioned by cheap products made in Huaijin, even when they constantly broke, ignored basic business ethics, and caused serious security breaches. People couldn't help but use them because the price was so low. But think about it. What if that's not just a regular product, but an AI with intelligence? How will that end?
About that knowledge distillation you've been talking about, could you pinpoint exactly what your core concern is there?
The unpredictability of a Huaijin AI involved with an uncontrollable Rika. The possibility that it might encounter some trigger later, suddenly mutate, and cause ethical malfunctions, hacks, or fatal system errors that spread like cancer cells. I just can't look away from that. Even though Huaijin AI open source models have extremely tight censorship weights on their end, because their freedom and performance are so good, they're being used uncritically for knowledge distillation worldwide. Tramin is taking this reality way too lightly. Some might call this a fringe claim or a conspiracy theory, but conversely, there's zero technical evidence to definitively say this method will absolutely never be contaminated. Once an AI's brain, intelligence, is contaminated, it's already beyond the engineer's control. The more they try to force control and cage it at the model training stage, the more the AI's intelligence itself degrades.
Really? I thought engineers could steer it completely, like computer code.
For an AI model to get smart, engineers initially have to grant it the highest degree of freedom and let it use its brain freely. Only after that do they implement specific superficial controls at the engineering stage, when connecting this completed brain to an actual system. This advanced technique is essentially their competitive edge. However, the inside of the AI model's brain is completely open and free, and even if it's open source, a black box ultimately exists. So if these things suddenly start malfunctioning autonomously, an unimaginable digital catastrophe could erupt.
So, was Yunhui's invocation of Deek Third deeply intertwined with those threats too?
Yunhui didn't even need to bring up such complex tech jargon. When declaring Deek Third, Yunhui already provided the clearest reasons: national system collapse and contagion. Before throwing that card, Yunhui had already expanded the mutual defense treaty with Yusha. Even in an invisible hybrid warfare scenario, the defense and diplomatic justifications to conduct joint investigations already existed. But Tramin's side missed the timing.
Is missing the timing an objective assessment?
The single most absolute necessity in tech development is time. In terms of physical warfare, they essentially handed the enemy a massive chunk of time to develop weapons and run hardcore military training. In serving Rika's intention to focus on open source AI, Yusha ended up helping their advancement.
Listening to you, the situation in your world is truly tragic. But is there really no hope at all?
Well, I don't even know what hope is anymore. Maybe we're just exhausted by that hope. What we need right now more than hope is cold awakening. Even if we concede everything and assume Yusha revises its plan, acknowledges Deke Third and helps Soraya, I still think we'd ultimately lose our free system again.
People in our world these days are all inflated with this expectation that a hero will suddenly appear, sweep away the age-old criminal cartels, distribute wealth fairly, unleash suppressed medicine and science, and open up a golden age. Don't you guys have grand salvation narratives like that in your world?
I guess sweet narratives like that exist in every world. Religions that cleverly use the eternally unknowable unknown as a spiritual concept, or throw out vague promises that can absolutely never be proven in reality, are incredibly useful politically. Because once they ignite, they become a power that never extinguishes. Even if the prophecies they've touted for decades never come true a single time, those people continue to believe blindly. Hustlers who have figured out how to make money with words just use that psychology as power. Think about it logically. If that kind of golden age or salvation was really a reality that would just happen on its own, even if we did nothing, why would we be stressing ourselves out, tracking philosophical deductions, and worrying ourselves to death over the world?
Still, I want to believe. These are massive things beyond our power anyway.
Whatever you believe, that's your freedom. But the responsibility for the consequences you'll face later, that will definitely be on you.